Gina V. I taught long enough that I'd say my name, and I run into students to this day who think I have one name, and it's Genevieve, you know, and I feel so glamorous at Winco, I just let it go. Anyway, I always like people to know, you know, sort of where I'm coming from, so you can kind of get an understanding of why I do this work and what I bring to it. I am a psychologist by training. I taught at Lynn Batten Community College for 34 years. Probably had some of your children. You might ask them about Genevieve. And I then retired and was sort of, my husband was still working and I was sort of at a loss. And the first thing I did after retirement, I think it was 2 weeks out, and I hadn't learned the lesson yet that when someone calls you and asks you, what are you doing? You don't say nothing. And I said nothing. And it was a friend of mine who was trying to put together Jackson Street Youth Shelter. And at that time I said, yeah, I'll help. So I ended up writing all of the grants and helping set up the organization, getting the board in place. Because Jackson was a 24-hour child care, there was a tremendous amount of licensing that went into place. But the long and short of it is the community is very proud of the fact that they serve this population, and I am sure we have kept many young people in Corvallis from getting on I-5 and going north to Portland and making the mistake of a lifetime. And we've kept families intact because of the way, you know, children can stay for 2 or 3 days and renegotiate with their parents and get back in. Well, after that, I was asked to write grants, and I've written grants for places like Albany Helping Hands, was involved with them building their $3 million building over there, and have done it in other locales. But when Corvallis Homeless Shelter Coalition began their Partners Place initiative, Barbara Ross contacted me and asked whether I would be interested in writing the grant for the funding for that building. Now, let me step back a minute and tell you what Corvallis Homeless Shelter Coalition's mission is. It is simply shelter, okay? It runs on a philosophy called housing first. That if somebody is homeless, it is very hard to provide any kind of services to them because they're under the bridge, they're living in a car, there's no way you can get case management to them, you can get food to them, you can get medical care. So the philosophy is that the best way to proceed in terms of homelessness is get them into shelter first, get them into housing first, and then provide them with these services. So there is always a service component, but it is after shelter is provided. So in my little journey with this organization, I wrote the grants, and we were able to open 2.5 years ago Partners Place. Now, Partners Place is built on this model of housing first, is a permanent housing for chronically homeless individuals. At the present time, there are 14 men and women, and most of these individuals have been on the street 10 years. And the common condition is that they suffer from incredibly poor health. So we have one man in there who's had 3 or 4 strokes, so he's totally paralyzed on one side of the body. We have another man in there who, you know, was reporting to us he had COPD. What he actually had was cancer of the larynx. When we finally were able to get him this medical care, had to have the larynx removed, okay? So the level, we have a few fellas in there with PTSD, which is at a very high, severe level. And so what we do, we bring them in, we house them, we case manage them, and we get them into medical care, we get them into counseling, We, we work with other organizations like Disability Services. I have for the fellow who is a stroke patient, we were able to have someone come in and help him prepare food. All right, now, because one of the things that we don't limit there, which is interesting, I think, is that they can drink in their apartments. Fine. They just can't smoke in their apartments. And I spend most of my life going around going, maybe there's smoke there, But in any regard, what we have seen is we help them apply for disability, we help them get their lives in order, and the drinking subsides. They begin to acquire quite middle-class kinds of standards. And for most of us, what you don't realize is when I first put them in, they often won't sleep on the beds. They're on the floor, and I'm going, we have a lovely bed here, nice mattress, all right. This was, brand new, contributed. So what I ended up doing was buying a few sleeping bags, putting them on the bed, and they would sleep on the bed in the sleeping bag. For some mental reason, that was an important condition, and eventually, they've become, and I think that's just one example. So we have Partners Place, and by the way, the funding for that not only purchased the building, purchased the case management, and allows us to have a fund to backfill the rent on the building for 5, maybe 6 years. The more people that I get through SSD, so they're able to pay their rent, the longer my fund will last. You see how that works. So I can pay for my maintenance, I can pay for everything that is involved with the building. And by the way, some of that money came out of the city, CDBG, $250,000. The rest of it came out of the state, and I have some that was federal dollars. That's probably one of the more public parts of what we do. Another thing that we do, which is not public at all and really captures my heart, is we have a relationship with 509J wherein, I don't know if you're aware of this, there are over 200 homeless children in 509J. And these children are managed by a McKinney-Vento coordinator. Now, they're living, the definition of homelessness for these children is that they do not have a stable nightly residence. So they're living in a car or they're couch surfing. The families do not stay, over a month they might be in 3 places. The goal of McKinney-Vento is to first identify, secondly provide what services they can, and try to keep the child in their local school. All the research says if you can keep the child in the local school, that provides a level of stability in their lives. And they will continue. They have their friends, they have a teacher, they have a routine, and they don't become early dropouts, basically, is what happens when you start moving them all over town or all over the county. Well, with the help of several organizations, a couple of you are represented here, Benton County Foundation, Rotary, Zonta, which Diana is a member of, have given us money that we can provide a rent stipend to families. Now, most families have TANF, so they may have $500, $600. It's not enough for them to pay rent. But if we patch that together with $200 a month, I can get them into low-income housing, for instance, when I'm at neighborhood housing. And the children can have the stable housing. Now, the contract that the family agrees to is this. They will have case management, which we provide, and they will have a mentor. And I have had fabulous good luck with women from this community, retired attorneys, retired school teachers, who've said, I will befriend, and that's what I asked them to do, this family, and advocate for them with me, help them with their budgets and issues that come up. And these connections have provided the stability, really, where these people, as they run into problems, problems like they get a job, but say cleaning houses, but they can't get to the house because one of their tires is so bad that they can't run their truck. So for the cost of a tire, we keep their income coming in and we keep them in housing. I mean, it's a pittance. It's a pittance that keeps the whole ship, afloat. Over the last year, what we have developed, which I'm very proud of, is a relationship called the Adult Services Team. And the Adult Services Team is an organization of all of the providers in Benton County that have any way that they can support homeless and homeless families. And each of us brings our candidate to this group. So you have us sitting there, you have COI sitting there, you have Lynn Benton Housing Authority sitting there, you have DHS sitting there. Everybody has got someone. So we bring in a family, and those families are evaluated, and we talk to them right there. They're case managed, okay? And I mean, there are issues that come up. Do you have a felony in your background? Because if you have a felony in your background and it's recent, I can't get you into housing. Or we're going to have to figure out how to talk to a landlord about ensuring that you're going to be a good renter. Are the kids going to school regularly? Well, the person who's sitting there from 509J has all the reports. If they're not going to school regularly, why aren't they going to school regularly? Because 509J will transport the kids to the school. So back to their home school, so they don't have to lose that relationship. In any regard, it's a fabulous system. It's efficient in terms of time, but I am absolutely assured that the $200 that I have in my pocket makes all the difference in the world. And by the way, I only pay the landlord. That money never goes to the client. It always goes to the landlord. And monthly we meet to see how is the person progressing. So if 509J says, those kids aren't in school, there's no rent money. You've got to keep the kids in school. You've got to progress on your plan. And it's a wonderful carrot stick model. And yet it's very supportive. The people come away feeling like, okay, there's some hope. I have some people I can talk to, and they want to help me. So those are the two programs, and I wish that the children's actually got more publicity, because the sad thing is if we don't deal with this population, it stays the same. You have 200 this year, you don't put them in housing, you're going to have 200 next year. If we get 25 in housing, we'll only have 175 next year. I mean, that is a population that we can easily begin to attack and get them into housing. Now, probably the thought when you hear Corvallis Homeless Shelter Coalition that comes to mind is all of the publicity recently that we've gotten about our new building, right? My husband said, I have an idea about how you can pay for that building, Gina, when you go out to speak and sell tickets. But I'm a Rotarian, so I wouldn't do that. But, so here's the men's cold weather shelter. First of all, for 7 years, we have run the men's cold weather shelter in Corvallis. We have done it in fraternity houses. We have done it in church basements. Our whole model, again, is housing first. So we take people who have difficulties, often with alcohol or drug or mental health or physical health. And what we say is, You can come and sleep here 7 o'clock at night till 7 in the morning. We will feed you something. We will try to set you up with some mental health appointments or physical health appointments, but we only have you as on an overnight basis. The model has worked and been very, very efficient because we have now 19 organizations, many of them churches, but as you may know, the Rotarians have been very active with us, and we really, really appreciate all the work you've done. And what we have been able to do is to keep anywhere from 42 to 48 men indoors from dying from exposure, quite frankly, for 5 months out of the year. And we do it, we have 2 paid staff a night. We have 4 or 5 volunteers who volunteer for a week at a time, and they'll bring in some soup and bread or something like that to serve the men. And then they are there for companionship, to help sort of maintain the rules. In general, an evening goes like this, and I think there's a lot of confusion. People come between 7 and 8. They can't come at any other time. They are checked in, and every one of them has the first night they check in, they fill out relatively long forms. We sit down with them, you know, more than just your name and how old you are and these kinds of things. Are you a vet? Do you have a medical history? Who's your contact people? You know, a lot of data that we've been collecting. And then they are assigned a bed. Now, there's sort of 2 populations. One is a group who's so exhausted, all they do is go to sleep. They get in there at 8 o'clock. We don't see them until 7 o'clock the next morning. And then there's another group who goes and gets some soup, gets some food, and will socialize for a period of time. But lights are out at 10 o'clock. There's no, from 10 o'clock at night until 7 in the morning, other than very loud snoring, there isn't too much. Until you've been in a room with 42 men snoring, you haven't lived. But and I might say, you know, I have heard people say, oh, that this is luxurious. A few of you have been there. We have 42 bunk beds in a room, okay? It is not luxurious digs, okay? So this population, by the way, has come back our volunteers have come back year after year after year. And we're very thankful and of their continued support for our project. Now, what happened 2 years ago was we had been at a church, and they, because we only lease for 5 months, we are a cold weather shelter and will continue to be a cold weather shelter. They wanted the use of their facility year round. They had a child care center that wanted to rent it year round, and so we lost our ability to go there. And that summer, we evaluated 25 properties in Corvallis. And we ran into zoning issues, and we ran into people who in the past would have said, okay, fine, I'll lease this to you. It's never going to move. It's sitting there. But because of the housing boom in the city, everybody was saying, oh, no, this property is going to be the next Walmart. This property is going to be the next Target. I can't tie it up. And we got right up to the sheltering season. In fact, it was November. Well, when I went to the mayor, it was late October. And I told her, I have one place that will rent. They're asking $20,000 more than we had, because the church had been, everybody in the past had been very, gracious with us. And she looked at me. I said, I don't think we're going to have a shelter this year. She looked at me. She said, sign the lease, I'll get the money. And she did. because of some help from Benton County sheriffs and Samaritan. Because what we do is we keep people out of the emergency rooms, we keep people out of the jail system, we reduce the pressure on the police, ambulances, all of these tax burdens that you and I pay are reduced. By the way, I'll tell you right now, Benton County Sheriff contacted me, or actually it's the man, whomever is in charge of the jail, and he said, can you send me a little information about your hours and your rules? And I said, sure will. And now he gives them a map. When they are discharged from the jail, they walk over and they come to us. Now, what's the advantage for the community? You do not have a homeless, hungry, indigent person who's just gotten out of jail in the streets. I mean, at least from 7 at night to 7 in the morning. So our relationship with the city has been very good. We've tried to participate with them. Now, last year, again, we were in the position of we don't have a place. And we, the owner of the building we had been in, and we had looked at a lot of places. We have had a steering committee who's been involved for 16 months, meeting weekly, made up of individuals. Biff Traber's one, I have ministers, we have different people from the community who've been helping us site a permanent shelter. The city took this on as a goal, site a permanent shelter, and so this last November, we purchased the site we had been in the year before. Now, our goal is to bring together 3 nonprofits. That is Stone Soup, which has functioned in Corvallis for 30 years on a volunteer model. Daytime Drop-In Center, which is a resource center available, provides showers, provides mail collection. And ourselves, these 3 501c3s are partnering together to build a place that we can provide all of our services in one spot.
Okay. Gina, I'm sorry to cut you off.
All right.
Let's maybe
I don't know what
have a couple of questions.
Yeah, okay. All right. I'll stop here. I'm sure you have some questions, but yes, go ahead.
So have you considered talking to Habitat for Humanity for helping you with building the
We actually have, but I'll have to tell you, Tom Girding has volunteered. He's come forward and he has said that he will do everything he can to help us. Right now, he's working with us pro bono to develop all of the budgets that we need to be able to go forward and apply for grants. He has a history in this community of annually doing at cost some nonprofit. I think last year was Home Life. He did the Catholic Church. He's done, I mean, that's part of his business mission and model. So I think we're going to be working with Tom. Yeah.
So what will it take to make you a full-time shelter, not just at night? And,
well, I think
from the
yeah.
From the big homeless picture, you know, you're an expert in this. If you were to do that, is that really going to cut down on what preceded the begging, the people that are standing out in the corners?
Right. Well, you know, we are responsive to what the community feels is the need of the community, all right? We've gone forward with who we are, okay? It's possible that we could become a year-round shelter. I think our model would change slightly. We'd have to consider, you know, right now we're very, very efficient. We, not this last year, but the year before, we housed 150 men for 4 months. That was a 4-month model for $36,000. It doesn't, because we have this volunteer model. So obviously, if we were to expand, if we were to consider it would alter, it would be money. I mean, that's the bottom line. You're asking, what would it take? It would take a different model and it would take more money.
Well, Gina, thank you very much.
Oh, okay,
for,
well,
being here
anything
today.
else now?